I remember the exact moment I understood what I was about to lose. Not when the decision was read, not when the papers were handed to me, but when the room went quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't wait for a reaction, the kind that assumes acceptance. If this story is touching you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there. The judge cleared his throat, adjusted the papers, and said something that sounded careful, measured, almost apologetic. "This is a legal decision," he paused, "not a moral one." I didn't understand then how devastating that distinction would become. I had always believed that fairness was built into the law. Not perfectly, not always quickly, but eventually. I thought that if something was unfair, it could be challenged, corrected. I was wrong. Some things are unfair by design. My situation didn't begin with conflict. It began with responsibility. Years earlier, a relative had trusted me with something important, not because I was powerful, not because I was wealthy, because I was reliable. That trust became the center of my life. I managed what needed managing, handled paperwork, made decisions, not recklessly, not selfishly, carefully, always assuming that care counted for something. The problem wasn't that I failed. The problem was that circumstances changed. And the law doesn't care why something changes, only that it does. When questions were raised, I welcomed them. I believed transparency would protect me. I opened records, explained decisions, I answered questions honestly. I didn't realize honesty can be neutralized by procedure. The review process was calm, professional. Everyone spoke respectfully. No one accused me of wrongdoing. That should have reassured me. Instead, it should have warned me. Because when no one is accused, no one is defended. Reports were written, language chosen carefully, phrases that sounded harmless. Change in circumstances, reassessment of suitability, long-term considerations. Each phrase created distance between what I felt and what the law recognized. I tried to explain the human side, context, history, the reasons decisions had been made. The judge listened. But listening is not the same as weighing. When the opposing recommendation was presented, it sounded logical, efficient, safer. It didn't accuse me of harm. It implied that harm might occur, and that was enough. I remember asking my lawyer if this meant I had done something wrong. He shook his head. "No," he said. "This just means the law prefers a different outcome now. Prefer." As if outcomes were choices on a shelf. The day of the ruling felt strangely ordinary. I expected tension, drama. Instead, there was procedure. The decision was read clearly, slowly, as if clarity soft impact. The judge explained that the law required a certain conclusion, that personal feelings were irrelevant, that fairness was not the standard being applied. That sentence stayed with me. Fairness was not the standard. When it was over, people stood up, chairs moved, life resumed. Mine didn't. I walked outside and stood still. I wasn't angry. Anger needs a villain. I wasn't shocked. Shock needs surprise. What I felt was displacement, like something essential had been relocated without my consent. The decision didn't erase me instantly. It redefined me. My role became smaller. My authority conditional, my voice secondary. Everything continued legally. Deadlines, notices, compliance expected. And I complied because resistance would only confirm doubt. People around me tried to comfort me. At least it was done properly. At least the process was followed. Those phrases cut deeper than criticism, because what do you argue against correctness? How do you protest a system doing exactly what it was designed to do? The consequences arrive slowly, in routines disrupted, access limited, decisions made without me. Not because I was untrusted, but because the law required distance. I tried to adapt, told myself this was temporary, that fairness would eventually assert itself. But fairness had already been dismissed as irrelevant. I reviewed the documents late at night, looking for errors, loopholes, something tangible to fight. There were none. The decision was clean, solid, unassailable. That's when the truth settled in. I hadn't lost because I was wrong. I lost because the framework changed, and frameworks don't apologize. People assume unfairness comes from abuse of power. Sometimes it comes from its precise application. I wasn't punished. I was reorganized. My place in the equation adjusted, and the equation balanced perfectly without me. The hardest part was explaining it to others. They wanted a reason, a mistake, a failure. I had none to offer. I started avoiding the question because saying it was legal sounds like an excuse, and saying it wasn't fair sounds childish. Time passed. The new arrangement solidified. What was temporary became permanent through repetition. The law's consistency, even when it freezes loss in place. I noticed changes I couldn't reverse. Distance grows when it's sanctioned, when absence is approved. I replay the judge's words often. This is a legal decision, not a moral one. At the time, it sounded neutral. Now it sounds like a warning. The law doesn't measure impact, it measures compliance. It doesn't ask who suffers most, it asks what reduces liability. I don't hate the judge, I don't hate the system. That's the most unsettling part. There's no target for my grief. What I lost wasn't stolen. It was reassigned, transferred, filed. People say the law is blind. I disagree. It sees very clearly, just not what hurts. I still live with the consequences in quiet moments, in decisions I no longer make, in roles I no longer hold. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if fairness had been the standard. But wondering doesn't change rulings. The decision stands, correct, lawful, and devastating. It was a legal decision, not a fair one.
If you think stories like this should be told, you can support the channel by liking this video. If you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. A new episode every day. Cool doesn't always mean fair.